North Carolina or refused to do business with us after the what was it?
HB.
No, the bathroom thing. Yeah, the HB.
Yeah. HB. I can't remember the number, but HB, yeah, whatever it was.
No.
Hospital.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the superintendent of Houston ISD just left. I mean,
I see you there.
Not saying that was wonderful or bad necessarily, but he was like, basically, I don't want to be in a state where I'm fighting bathrooms. And I'm fighting, whether or not And them dimples.
All right, we are live now. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the first live class of the Defining Black Sisterhood course, hosted by Dr. Roni Dean-Burren. Say hi to the people, Roni.
Hi, I was looking at my phone.
Looking at your phone. And me, I'm Leslie Mack. We have some special guests with us this evening, which I'm really excited to introduce them in just 1 second. But first, Roni has a little housekeeping. We're going to get that out of the way at the top of the class, and then we're going to jump into this week's topic, which is all about Black sisterhood and pop culture. So take it away, Roni.
Take it away. Like, I feel like I need to dance. Be like, take it away, Sam. Right? Okay, but I'm not going to do that. So one thing we want to hear back from you all about is sort of what you thought of the first week's syllabus. Was it too much information? Was it too little? Was it accessible? Was just kind of how you felt about that, so that we have a good idea for how we're going to tailor next week's. So if y'all are like, man, that's too much, we'll be like, okay, we might change, pare it down a little bit and put only 2 or 3 things on there or something like that. So we really want to hear sort of how that felt. Did you have enough time, or did you feel like, also, would you rather, like, if we still send the same amount of information, like maybe star 2 or 3 things that we're like, we really want you to look at these 2 and the others are optional. So we just want to hear back from you as far as how the syllabus is laid out by the week and what you thought of it for the first week. So that's sort of my little housekeeping bit. Is that all my housekeeping?
Yeah, I think that's it. Today's class, as you can see, it's on Facebook Live. So we're in both the event page for this class and also in the Defining Black Sisterhood Facebook group. So you can see it either of those 2 places if you're looking there right now. And so it's going to be pretty open format with our 2 panelists here. And so we're going to go through a couple of topics related to the readings that y'all received from us last week on the topic of Black sisterhood and pop culture and media. And I'll talk a little bit at the end of the class about how the rest of the weeks are going to be different than this week, because it's going to be a little bit different format. So we can do a little more interacting with all of you who are taking part in the course with us. But before we jump into the full meat of the class, we want to definitely introduce our esteemed guests. And we'll let Roni start with the first introduction.
I would like to introduce y'all to Sherry, LaToya Day, Scott. I gave you the whole government name. I gave it all to you.
The whole name.
The whole name. But Sherry Scott is she's the bomb. I mean, her bio's in the event page, but she's like my media person, and she's my girlfriend, bestie. We go way back to college and things that you'll never know, but that's okay. But when I thought about this week and about media and pop culture, of course, Sherry popped into my mind because I know that her eyes into the media world and into pop culture are so keen. And so I was so excited to sort of share her with the world, but share her with everybody as well. You see that I have possession issues. I'm like, but she belonged to me. So that is our panelist 1.
Yes,
and you want to introduce our other panelists?
I will. Our other panelist should be familiar to most of y'all. She is Sharonda J. Brown, essayist, editor, researcher, digital activist. She's a self-proclaimed lifelong nerd. You can read a lot of her work at BYP, Wear Your Voice magazine, Race Baiter, Roaring Gold, Word Brew. She's amazing. She writes tons of essays about pop culture, which is why we, of course, tapped her to come speak and be with us tonight. She's also a member of both the Bayhive and Sisters in the Storm. And so I'm just excited to, of course, hear all of her thoughts about pop culture and Black sisterhood, and very excited to have her here as well. Yes. So we thought we'd start with a quick round robin to just let folks know our preferred pronouns. First off, our hometowns. Either you can share where you were born or where you are currently residing. And also your favorite Black girl greetings. So how do you greet your sister friends when you see them? Why don't we start with Sharonda?
Okay. Pronouns are she and her. I was born in a small town called Tarboro, North Carolina, that most people don't know about, but I've been in Greensboro, North Carolina for about 10 years. My favorite sister greeting, I don't know, I've never thought about it. I just kind of say, good morning, hello. I say that to y'all every day, right? Like, good morning.
You do. Good morning. No matter what time. Good morning.
Right. It's like 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, good morning.
Good morning.
Sharonda be waking up at 5 p.m. talking about good morning.
Good morning. Hey, it's her morning.
Construct, Roni.
Too much. How about you, Sherry?
Pronouns are she and her. I represent West Texas. Home
Listen.
I live in Atlanta now. I also rep ATL, but I grew up in Friday Night Lights. And my favorite greeting is, hey, beautiful, or hey, because I feel like we don't hear it enough, So whenever I talk to my grandma, it's, hey, beautiful, how are you?
Does say that.
Dr. Burren. Dr. Burren. How about you?
I am from Houston, Texas, representing that age. Okay, sorry.
From her anywhere.
I currently live in Pearland, Texas, which is, the burbs all day long. My pronouns are she and her. Honestly, my favorite Black girl greeting is bitch, hey. Bitch, you look good now. Like, y'all know me. Like, just, I can be mad, happy, sad, and I'm gonna be like, bitch, wait a minute, hold on. So I just love that one, which I need to work on another one because you can't really do that like in the workplace, or sometimes my daughter will be looking fly and I'll be like, girl, you cute. But I do like hey girl, hey. I've always like hey girl, hey girl. So yeah, those are my ones.
Lovely, lovely. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina right now, but just moved here. I love it here. It's amazing. The weather's fantastic. Sorry to break it to those that aren't good weather, but it's beautiful here. And hey girl is always a good one. I do a like, hey, pretty lady. Like, I'll say pretty lady often, especially if I'm typing it. I'll always say, like, hey, pretty lady, what you doing, pretty lady? Because I do feel like we don't hear that often enough. So I'm always, like, ready to tell somebody they looking cute. Are you cute? That's another one. I'll just be like, oh, you cute? Are you cute? That's like that thing where it's like, I think it was like a meme I saw the other day where, like, how Black girls compliment each other. Oh, come on, shoulders.
Right.
Look at them eyebrows. Like, we always just be like ready to compliment.
When Sherry was talking, I was like, okay, lips. All right.
Exactly. All right. So for a little icebreaker, I thought it'd be fun for us each to share a little bit about our favorite depictions of Black sisterhood in pop culture, TV, movies, books, et cetera, et cetera. What are the ones that, when you thought of this topic that were like, oh yeah, those are the ones that really hit me. Roni, why don't you start?
Well, the first one that came to my mind was Whitley and Kim from A Different World. I'm a Different World, like, super fan. Every episode, it don't matter when it comes on, I'm going to watch it, right? But I just love their dynamic. I love that Kim could get Whitley told in a minute. I saw myself in both of them, like this spoiled person, this spoiled child who needed somebody else to be like, girl, you need to calm down. So for me, Whitley and Kim were always that. And then just, of course, the show was great, but how they just remained friends throughout every phase of their lives, as freshmen and just kind of growing up together, and even until, their adulthood and sharing their young adult lives together. So those are my favorite girlfriends from TV.
Love it. How about you, Sherry? What were the ones that stuck out to you?
It's funny because mine is from Different World as well, but I have two. So because, So different world would be Lisa Bonet and Cree Summers characters, right? So Freddie and Denise, mostly not because of the show, but because in real life, they are still friends. Like you can follow them on IG, like Zoe Kravitz is Cree Summers' goddaughter. So I love that it's art and life imitating each other.
Yeah.
More broadly, though, and less highbrow, is Halle Berry and I forgot the woman's name on Baps.
Oh, Babs. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For each other.
Yes, Babs.
It's dreams.
They are the best.
Hair. When she said, he ain't about shit. Like, sorry, can I say that? But like,
you can say it.
Yeah, they were friends. They were real girlfriends. They were real girlfriends, and I still enjoy that film. That's a film I watch with my girlfriends when we want to have that kind of sisterhood moment. So that's what
I'm gonna have to watch it tonight. I'm gonna have to watch it
and go booyah. If you don't have who make hair for you, then you ain't
right.
That's real friendship, right? How about you, Sharonda?
Television, Girlfriends.
Girlfriends.
Yes, I grew up on that show. I watched it every single day after school. I always identified way too much with Joan Carroll Clayton. I'm a total Joan in all of my friend circles. At least that's what I've been told. Even though I wish I could be more like, what's her name? The light-skinned one. Like, she was just like so free, didn't have really a care in the world, didn't really seem to have anxiety. But yeah, I was always way too uptight to be her. In terms of movies, Set It Off. Queen Latifah.
Also,
yeah, Queen Latifah and Jada Pinkett Smith. Yes, Queen Latifah and Jada Pinkett Smith characters. I love I love all four of them together, but especially the dynamic between those two characters, how they could be call each other out on their shit, and then just be so close and so loving and willing to literally die for one another.
I love Girlfriends too. It's like one of my favorite shows just of all times. I really love Tony and Joan in particular. I just felt like there was this thing where there was a soft place each of them had that they only showed to each other. And so that really resonated with me, especially Tony, because she was always just so hard. But with Joan, there was a soft place for her. And so I really always appreciated that. And then another movie that is a TV movie, I think it was a TV movie, but The Women of Brewster Place kind of stuck in my head too. Because I remember when that came on, I remember watching it with my sisters and stuff. And I remember being like all these different Black women and all of the different ways that they supported each other through all of the wild stuff that was happening around them. And so those are the two ones that kind of popped up in my head a little bit there. So we're going to transition a little bit and talk at the top here about the historical context to sisterhood as Black women. We know that pop culture is something that we all breathe and take in, but this notion of sisterhood between Black women existed far before Girlfriends or Set It Off or Women of Brewster Place or any of those things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that context of it before we jump into some of the different themes that we see media and pop culture picking up about Black sisterhood. And I know, Roni, you wanted to talk a little bit about Toni Morrison and that, so I wanted to give you some time to speak on it.
So this past weekend, I was one of the speakers at the March for Black Women in Houston, which was just a beautiful gathering of Black women. Listen, when I tell you it was everything, it was everything. And the organizers got on the mic and said, hey, if you're not a Black woman and you're standing in front of a Black woman and they can't see the stage, you're in the wrong spot. So you need to sit down or you need to move. So it was just beautiful. So when I was thinking about words I wanted to share and what I wanted to say, I knew I wanted to talk about this idea of sisterhood. And so I was looking, and of course, y'all know that I'm a Toni Morrison stans, right? Like, she can do no wrong. And so I was looking at things that she said about sisterhood and women. And she said in an interview with her and Nikki Giovanni, and maybe even Maya Angelou, maybe they were at Maya Angelou's birthday. I'm not sure when she was still living. So she said, Black women are the original girlfriends. She said, we originated this. She said, because from the time that we were a stolen people to the time that we were living on plantations, all we always had was each other. And if we didn't have each other, we had nothing. And so that right there just kind of stuck with me, because I thought, man, like, we laid the blueprint for this. Like, we've been standing for each other like forever. Like this is what we do. And so I thought that was so powerful, because she sort of pointed that out about who we are historically. And so when I think about sisterhood historically, that quote right there really did something to me and made me think about, like, man, this is what we do. Like, we do sisterhood, we do girlfriends. That's what we do. So that was my little historical shout out from Mother to me.
Yes, excellent. And when we were talking about putting this part of the class together, I actually was reminded of a movement performance I saw in New Orleans a couple of years ago called Vessels, which was a troupe of 7 Black women that put this performance on. And it was meant to answer the question, what does freedom sound like in a space of confinement? It was kind of about the Middle Passage. And it was inspired by something Nikki Giovanni had said, which was, and I'm going to quote her here, "I'd really like one of these artists out here to answer this question. How did millions of African people survive the Middle Passage and end up on these shores sane?" Well, I don't know if they were really sane, but if they were, it must have been singing. And if it was singing, it must have been the women. So she kind of posits this idea that through Middle Passage, knowing that lots of the people that were there in the hulls of ships they didn't speak the same language. They weren't from the same place necessarily, but they were able to, through sound, she posits that the women through sound would have kind of held the psyche of everyone in that horrible, dark place. The performance was really moving, but it just got me thinking about this deep current that runs through us, of we are all we have, that we all turn to each other continually over and over again. And so I thought that these 2 comments from Nikki Giovanni and Toni Morrison were good ways to kind of open up all of these classes to kind of move into discussing all of these themes around sisterhood and Black women. So now, before I move on, I just want to make sure Sherry and Sharon, did y'all have anything to add about this historical context of this, like, long-term context of Black sisterhood that we all are connected to as we forge our way ahead together?
No, I don't have any more thoughts. I think you and Roni both summarized it well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is Roni and I actually bring this up to each other often. One of my favorite Toni Morrison lines is, we was girls together. Right? And
gave it a little chill.
Yeah, and it's truth, it's fact, and it's beauty. And like, that's, I think, is kind of the whole idea. It even goes back to your saying about the Middle Passage. Like, from day one, we have been there for each other, as women, as Black women. We was girls together, and now we're women.
Yes. If this was a podcast, I would name it "We Was Girls Together." Okay. That's what this episode would be called. So let's move into kind of these common themes that we see repeated in pop culture and media. We have 4 that we have identified: language and class differences, coming together through hardship and hard times, overcoming distance and loss, and then finally family bonds, which would be, blood-related sister depictions. But let's start with language and class differences, which is something I think we certainly picked up on in Roni's first example that she used. Also is present in Girlfriends often as well. Just you saw those things come up. A couple of examples that I thought of was Kim and Whitley, obviously, Khadijah and Reginae from Living Single, whereas another two really close friends that had some different class expectations. Maya and Joan. This is somebody that at the start of that show started out as her assistant, and became a close friend. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. What do y'all think are some of the key components that we see at play, and what is media trying to get across in these kind of class situations where they're putting? Even we were talking earlier before we came on air about half and half. Even that show, though it was about 2 actual sisters, half sisters, there was a class component there. So why do we think this is something that continues to repeat in media's depictions of Black sisterhood so often?
Well, I think it's a classic trope in general for storytelling, right? You need attention and drama for any good story. What I think is unique about when we see it come into play with Black women is that when white women, you know, when you might see, I think it's like the crazy girl in 3B, or there's like all these shows, kind of fish out of water.
The Bee in Apartment 23.
Yeah, or Two Broke Girls.
Don't trust the Bee in Apartment 23. Yeah.
So same idea of like someone's wealthy and someone's poor, but what they don't have is like, we are, regardless of class, there's an expectation that you and I are sisters, right? Regardless. So there's this extra level of tension. So if you are somebody who's willing and not down for the cause, like we don't mind that you're rich, but you need to still be down for the cause. And I don't think that you don't see that in the white relationships because they don't have that.
Right.
So there's an extra level of drama that you see, you know, how down.
This is so true. I was away last week, so I just watched the Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder crossover episode. And
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, sorry. I'm not going to spoil it.
Go ahead and spoil it for me.
This isn't even about the plot of it, but there were several scenes between Olivia Pope and Annalise Keating that played on this thing. You know, it was like shade being thrown back and forth, but at the end it was this idea of like, yeah, but we still Black women and we still have to be here for each other. I do think you're Sadiddy. I know you looking down on me. I know that, you know, you were on your horse in boarding school while I was going to junior college or whatever it was. But there still was, as Sherry said, this underlying like, but we still need to be here. Like, I can talk to you like that, but I'm not going to let these other people do that to you.
And it's you know, that insult, right? If you do, right. But that's it's extra level of betrayal.
Yes.
I think it shows up in real life too. Like, I think that, you know, these writers and they write this because this is a part of who we are. So I would say 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'm in line at the store, Black girl in front of me. She's trying to buy stuff. She doesn't have enough money. Their WIC machine isn't working. She puts the formula back. She's whatever. There's 2 or 3 people behind her who are acting like just irritated or whatever. Like, oh, you know how they do it. So I'm like, well, it ain't her fault the WIC machine broke. I was like, you know what, here, I'll pay for it. Like, that is who, like, it doesn't matter that I don't have a WIC card and that you do. I don't even know how it even works. But at the end of the day, they not finna talk crazy to you. And I'm not about to let them do you any old kind of way. And we ain't even got to be cool like that. Like, it could be over. You could be like, she thinks she high class. That's fine too. But I think that what media has done is they've seen enough of those things happen in real life with Black women where they like, you know, the Whitleys and the Kims of the world are real. Like, people really do that. And like you said, Sherry, that you can be rich, but you better be down.
Yeah.
Because if you ain't, then we really got a problem. We really got a problem.
An extra layer of tension, drama that you wouldn't see on Friends, right? Because you know, Rachel and, you know, whatever Courtney Cox's character, you know, what was her name? I don't know.
Monica.
Cared about Friends, but like Rachel came from money, Phoebe didn't. But you know, there was no expectation that Rachel was down, though. Like, you know, that's something that's unique to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I also realized, Roni, you were supposed to intro that part of the class.
Listen, it don't even matter.
My bad. I got excited about it, and I was just like, "Oh, let's just get right into it."
It don't even. It's whatever.
So, do we think that there are some, you know, negative ways in which this particular, like the class, you know, differences can be portrayed? Is there a way that we see it that's like, that becomes tropey, that becomes, you know, a stereotype for us?
Like, oh, Empire and Boo Boo Kitty, and, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's always like, you know. I
had to give it up. I ain't watched it in a minute. I couldn't do it.
You know, I'll never watch this show ever.
Rhonda, are you down for the cause?
I don't like Terrence Howard. I can't watch anything with him in it and enjoy myself.
Well, he just played himself all the time, so it's a bit.
That's why I like him. I can't watch it with Terrence Howard in it no more.
But you know, so I'm working on a script right now, and one of the things I want to flip is this idea when you do usually see or you read about Black women and there's a class difference, it's always the person who is come from high society is light skinned, right? Which is not reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's always that. It's the light skinned girl versus the dark skinned girl. And that's how we know they're from two different worlds. Mm. So in my script, I'm flipping that because, there's some beautiful brown skinned sisters who grew up on the Gold Coast, right? Or who Michelle Obama on the South Side of Chicago. But it's easy. It's easy because we as a culture have kind of conditioned ourselves to see fair skin and light skin or white, right, as wealthy, healthy, and happy and darker. And we do it ourselves. You look at films, Boo Boo Kitty, right? Could have easily played by a dark-skinned sister, but we chose to make her a light-skinned sister.
I think Girlfriends kind of subverted that trope as well with Tony.
I don't know. Tony was posing. Tony didn't come.
Yeah, she didn't come from money, but she wanted to aspire to be upper class, and she always dated men who were upper class, and she ended up marrying a pretty well-off man. But I think that but she was portrayed as the type of woman we would normally see someone who, like the actress who played Lynn, portrayed as. And Lynn was super light. She was biracial. They had that whole storyline with her and her white sister saying the N-word. And she was the one who was
my favorite.
Poor and
herself.
Yeah. She was the one who was poor. She was the one who was a career student. But I also think that, her light is also kind of allow her to be that in a way that was, to exist in that space in a much easier way than if Tony had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I quote that particular episode all the time because the hair salon's name is Situations, and they have this whole moment in the hair salon, and the hairdresser says, "What kind of situation did you bring up in Situations?" And I literally, you can even ask my husband, I say that all the what kind of situation did you bring up in Situations? Anyways, I love that show.
I would just to add to the show Girlfriends, I would just like to say that I've never seen one single episode, so I don't know who any of these people are. So,
Roni.
Not one, Sharonda, nothing.
We're going to have to fix that for sure.
It's on Amazon Prime, I believe.
I'm going to put it on my list. I think it's on Amazon right now.
Yeah. That's when we come to Austin, we're watching Girlfriends.
Speaking of Girlfriends, even The Game, right? Again, there was Melanie, and then what's-his-face's mom, right?
Right.
Friends. Melanie's light-skinned woman. What's-his-face's mom. Beautiful, but dark-skinned, and had come up, right? The idea of being born into wealth and class is typically portrayed as a light-skinned Black woman, where darker-skinned women are seen as coming up and striving. It's something people should be aware of when you're casting, right? Because it doesn't.
Yeah.
The few shows that hasn't done that is Dear White People. The lead, yes, is light-skinned, but she is surrounded by women of all different shades. Right? I think the bougiest girl on that show is a dark-skinned sister. And not the main. There's remember the sorority girls? There's a sorority girl with her dog.
I've never watched it.
I haven't watched it either. I watched that movie, but I didn't see that.
I watched the movie. Yeah,
I don't know if I'm supposed to be in this course because
Roni, do her homework. Roni, do her homework, though.
That girl card is real.
Girlfriend.
I might need to submit it for renewal because the game.
Maybe that's it. We got to come up with a new list, the ultimate. Defining Black womanhood and pop culture list.
You have to do these things.
These are the ones you got to get through.
In the club.
The ultimate.
Like a punch card. It's a punch card.
Even Stula, right, Roni? Isn't it kind of the same breakdown there too?
In what?
In Stula?
Yeah, I think so. Well, and I think too, I was actually thinking about Beloved. And thinking about the sort of, first of all, the language difference in Denver and her sister Beloved, who comes back, right? And Beloved doesn't speak well, or at all, really. She's a baby, right? But this sort of language difference that they have, and even class, in the sense that, you know, Beloved is this kind of perfectly, you know, unvarnished woman, and Denver has been through hell and high water, right? But that Denver is still drawn to her, right? And she even says that, or she, you know, she's drawn to Beloved, and she's drawn to care for her, and to cover for her, and to do all of these things for her, even though there's all these differences, right? That, like, it don't even make sense that they would have a connection, because literally she just appears out of nowhere one day, right? But Denver is going hard for her, even though there's these differences in who they are and how they look, and, you know, and I'm not sure, which is funny too, because I'm not sure if Toni Morrison specifically says in the book that Beloved has soft curls and, you know, has lighter skin. Not that Denver is dark in the movie either, but they obviously look very different. And so just that piece of it, I was thinking about that as in terms of their language and class, in terms of, obviously Beloved is a spirit being.
Like Avery and Celie, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is a good segue actually into our next theme, which is coming together through hardship and hard times. Yet another consistent theme that we see in depictions of Black sisterhood. A few examples we mentioned some earlier. Women at Brewster Place, Waiting to Exhale was one that came up for me. For color girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. Set It Off is another great example of that Shalonda mentioned earlier. So many. So what are some of the key components of this idea that when things get hard, sisterhood is formed for Black women? Because I feel like I don't see that consistently when it comes to depictions of white friendships, you know, in media.
You know that I've seen white female friendships portrayed as sisterhood. You know what I mean? I think they did borrow that word from us. Like, that's not how white women typically talk about their friends, their girlfriends, right? I mean, again,
that's true.
Phoebe weren't calling each other sisters, right?
No, they wouldn't say, "Oh, that's my sister friend" or anything like that. No, that's definitely that's true.
So, but I think. So what's unique to us, again, is this idea of the community, right? So it's, you're my friend and something bad has happened to you. So therefore, all of my resources are coming to bear to help you, right? Yeah. That's a realistic theme in our community.
And actually, I would say that all of those narratives that you mentioned, Leslie, and others that I'm thinking about are not necessarily about Black women coming together to form the sisterhood. Like, the sisterhood seems to already be in place even before the narrative begins. It's more about strengthening that sisterhood, or about it taking a different form and manifesting itself in a different way. Like, there's always already understood connection there, even if they don't necessarily call it a sisterhood. It's already there.
Orange is the New Black, I think, is probably the best example of, like, women, or best recent example of women coming together, or Black women coming together out of circumstance. Like, those women don't know each other. They came into prison. They form a true sisterhood. And again, you see the Latina sisters do it. You don't see the white sisters do it.
Yeah, that's another conversation about. Yeah.
I didn't make it past season 3 of Orange is the New Black.
What season is it on now? I don't even know.
5, right?
No,
wow, really?
Is it on 5? I've watched them all, but the last 2, they hurt my heart. But anyway, I would say this idea of kind of coming together in hard times. I also thought about Girls Trip, right? And how everybody in that movie is in their own heart. Like, they're in their own sort of hard space, you know. You got Jada Pinkett's character, who's just a mother, and she's been through a divorce. And of course, you have Tiffany Haddish, who is just all the things, right? And then you have Queen Latifah's character, she's struggling. And then of course you have, I can't remember her name, who's, you know,
Regina
Hall.
Yeah,
Regina Hall
got this book deal and all these other things, but really, your man is trash. Not that all of them.
But I'm going to get my Sisterhood card revoked because I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, you on probation.
Okay,
man,
so
I gotta write this down too. Y'all all getting penalized. Hold up.
Even Sharonda, girlfriends for girls trip.
Girls trip. Okay, I'm writing this down.
I saw the trailer and I saw that they were setting up this whole narrative about Jada Pinkett Smith being single, and they were like, "Well, you need to get some dick on this trip," and I was like, "That's too close to my real life. I can't do this."
But she really did, though. She did, though.
I know she did. I know what's his name, Kofi Sarabi, whatever his name is.
No, but I'm saying she needed it, though.
Like she really... No, too close to real life.
Yeah, I was like, I had too much trauma associated with people telling me what I need to put inside my body. So I'm not going to touch it. I'll see it one day, though. It's on my list. I just didn't get around to it.
Yeah. But I thought they did a great job of sort of looking at sort of how that hard times obviously looks different for all of us, right? And a hard time in my life doesn't look like a hard time in Leslie's life, doesn't look like a hard time in Sharonda's life, doesn't look like a hard time in Sherry's life. But we gonna all come together. We gonna figure it out. Whether we got a game plan and this, and one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when they're going out the first night, and Jada Pinkett's character comes out. And she has on this dress, this skirt that is just like, she's like, this was made by, Guatemalan women in Central America. And it's just terrible, right? They're going like to a concert, right? Everybody got on like, fly jumpsuits. And she literally comes out like in this outfit looking like some abuela, right? Yeah. And they just like, take that off. Like, listen, you're not wearing that. And she's like, what's wrong? This is all handmade. And they like, that's why you're not wearing it. Go take it off, right? And so in her own personal life, that was a hard time that she was just completely oblivious to like what was going on and like how we dress when we go out or whatever. And so they give her this other dress and she goes out and she has a great time. But this idea of who we are and where we and how our intersections meet at struggle, right? Not that we're just our struggle or that we're just our pain, but when we have pain and when we struggle, I feel like there's nobody else who gets it except my sisters, like I can't really, I can tell you what happened at work. I can tell my one white friend what happened at work, and she'll be like, well, this and this and great. But if I tell Leslie, she'll be like, you know what? That's some bullshit because they always doing Black women like that. I'm like, see, that's what I'm saying. And so that idea of sort of this understanding of each other's struggle, that matters so much to me. It's why it pains me. If I know, not that I don't know, there are plenty of Black women who don't have Black women as girlfriends, but that makes me sad. And I even try to cultivate that in my own daughter, is making sure that she has Black girlfriends who get it. And yeah, so they can have each other, because that idea of who we are and how we can connect to each other when we've been hurt or when we're struggling, it's just, I just don't know if anybody else knows.
No, I get it. I wanted to bring up the relationship between the women of Black Panther, if that's okay. I don't know if everyone has seen it yet.
With what?
Black Panther,
Yes.
Black women of Black Panther. So before the movie came out, I read this interview between Lupita, Denai, and Angela, and I think Letitia may have also been a part of the interview, I'm not sure, but they talked about how in Black Panther, they were very intentional about creating or bringing to life Black women characters who were not in conflict with one another, because so many times in movies like that, where you have a lot of different quote unquote strong women together, they always end up being in conflict. And even in the moments where they are not necessarily on the same page, they're still supportive of each other. Like if specifically I'm thinking about the argument between Okoye and Nakia after they think that T'Challa is dead, and Okoye is just like, I'm going to serve my country, and Nakia says, I'm going to save my country. And I love that they were still able to have intimacy in that moment, even though they were not necessarily on the same page.
Yeah, I like that. Because you didn't feel like they were against each other, which would have been more heartbreaking, right?
Right.
You're already struggling with like, oh my God, Wakanda is going to shit.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy, the cousin that came, and Lord help us all. But you still felt like, but the sisters are okay, and then of course the sisters are going to save it all. Like, that's what we do. So yeah, I like that too. That's a great example of kind of that level of conflict, and I think too we see this a lot on social media, right? And that there's a level. I mean, every week, right? Not every week, every day. There's an issue. There's a thing that people are talking about, right? It can be whatever, and that we can be on different pages about it. And I could be like, Sharon, I think you're wrong on that one. But that we're not in conflict with each other, right? Or that even if I'm like, yeah, I think, I don't know, Sharon, I don't know, Leslie, that's kind of out in left field for me. But that at the end of the day, you still my sister. And also because you are my sister, I'm really listening to like, if we aren't on the same page, I'm really like, how are we not on the same page? We all the same shit.
But like, that's the point, right? Because we're not always going to be on the same page. We're not always going to agree on everything, but that doesn't mean we don't still present a united front against the things that we need to. Yeah. Like, even if you and I disagree on something today, does not mean that we suddenly are not both fighting misogynoir.
Every day.
Yeah, every day we're fighting misogynoir. So every day we have to present a united front on that, even if we don't agree about whether or not I should see girls trip.
You should see it.
I'm see it.
Yes.
Y'all make
absolutely.
I love you too.
So are there any kind of negative components to this theme that we see, this coming together through hardship, hard times? I do think that it tends to like give this understanding that, or this misunderstanding that sisterhood is solely formed in conflict. And this actually is like a very like consistent community organizing theme, which is that you never build relationships during conflict. You never build relationships during crisis. Your goal as an organizer is to have relationships already in place so that when crisis happens, you're ready to go. I'm not trying to like meet people when the worst thing that's happening to a community happens. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be like, I know who to go to. I know who's got the ear of people. I know how to get, that's kind of your goal. And so sometimes I do think that some of these kind of depictions do give this impression that, okay, well, this is the reason why Black women come together is because, there's hardship. And so they have to kind of band together. And that's a component to Black sisterhood, but it's not the overall purpose of it, right? Like for me, I see the purpose of Black sisterhood is like to nourish us, to replenish, to connect on that level that Roni mentioned before, to not have to, explain every little thing, right? To have a shorthand in expressing yourself that you don't have with any other part of the population. And so that's something I think about often is like, not to bring a Black man into this, but Donald Glover gave an interview about Atlanta the other day, and he said that he doesn't know what the show Atlanta would be like if it was made solely for Black people, because he doesn't know what a show like that looks like. Because media is always, even if the target demographic might be non-white people, it's still filtered through a white lens and ultimately going to be consumed by a white media, right? In this society, United States. And so I think even when something's made for us, there's still this small component of like, well, we have to make sure white people will understand it, right? That they'll be able to decipher it, whatever it might be.
One of the things
I was thinking about a few of those.
I'm sorry. One of the things I love about Girls Trip was actually kind of just that, right? That it was about, for me, it was about Black women joy, and we rarely get a chance just to see. We don't get bridesmaids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I love Baps because it was Black women joy. It wasn't about struggle. It was. I mean, there was definitely some of that because you need it for storytelling, right? You have to have the same kind of like storytelling elements. There has to be some conflict in Act 2 to get you to Act 3.
Right.
They clowned and had fun, and and we rarely get that. It feel like in general, Black stories are either always an ensemble cast, or drama, or a family drama and comedy. I think Black men get to clown and have fun, but usually with women, it's us coming around together to uplift each other in a moment of suffering, which happens. But Roni and I have been friends since we were 18 because we like to clown.
Cut up.
Because we've been cut up. So when I'm sad, yes, I turn to Roni, but that's our friendship was not born out of struggle. It was born out of, you're one of my favorite people to sit next to at church because we're going to laugh.
Right. And also, you're a person I don't need to sit next to at church because Gary and I are also in the same sorority. Again, we don't need to sit together at sorority meeting because the old mothers in the sorority are like, who are those two in the back? We sorry, we don't have on pantyhose either. So,
yeah, like I saw School Days the other day, and it was, wonderful for many reasons, but like just watching how the women, like, even the sisters who loved each other, they were like about the struggle and about the cause. You're either like very, you were the gamma rays or the sisters who were down. But there was no lightness. Like, there's this whole Kundra has the unbearable lightness of being, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rarely get to see Black women just having the lightness of being. So Girls Trip and Baps, those are the movies that I love because it's those moments,
Well, yeah. Go ahead. You sure?
Yes.
Okay. I agree with Sherry that a lot of it is just the way, just narrative structure, like you need a conflict and all that stuff. But also, Black people are so often portrayed as beasts of burden anyway in a lot of the movies that we do have visibility in. So we very rarely do you get to see a film or a TV show that has Black people in it that doesn't have them in some sort of conflict like that. And that's especially true for Black women because people just enjoy seeing Black women in pain. I mean, I would say that's true for just women in general, but it's particularly like perverted interest to see Black women and Black girls in pain, having some sort of loss, things like that. Like even if you think about Beasts of the Southern Wild that put Quvenzhané Wallis on the map, she was 6 years old and having to deal with trying to find her mother and that pain of being abandoned and being lost and having the levees break and the flood.
Yeah.
These are the types of narratives that we usually see Black girls and Black women in, either by themselves or with each other. So while I have not seen Girls Trip, I do know that it is about Black joy. And I do appreciate that so much because we don't see enough Black joy in these narratives, especially not from Black women. It's so rare to see that.
Yeah. I saw something the other day that said, women, teach your daughters that she is not strong, that her strength is not tied to her pain.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah, that you can be
Say
strong
that.
because, right? Like you don't have to go through something, right? Like that's the beauty. You can be born strong.
Well, and what we've done as Black people is we've really yucked it up with religion and faith and like this whole idea of like just hold on till your change come and you gon' and like there's so much beauty in sticking it out and bearing it and it's just like stop it because really the people that they're talking about is women. They're not talking about men sticking it out and bearing it and all that. They're talking about women carrying all the weight of everybody, of the community. And so I think, too, that the danger in this depiction of us coming together in hard times is that when these real life situations come up, right, and you are in conflict with your sister about something, or a Black woman about something, and you be like, yeah, it's a no for me on that one. That people really do get upset about sort of the breaking up of Black sisters or Black women, like we not friends no more, because this idea that, well, when Black women struggle or have conflict, they read each other and then they come together and they hug in the end. And I'm like, no, she gonna get a hug with a chair, like I'm gonna throw.
Uh-oh, did we lose already?
Maybe.
In a great pose.
Oh man, that's a good pose. I think we might have lost her there.
Somebody screenshot it, please.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
But it's true. I just feel like we're not allowed oftentimes in art. It is one of my frustrations to have a singular life, right? Like we're more than suffering. Sometimes we are irreverent and, we don't all burn incense and eat vegan,
right.
For people.
Like there's this what is it? Apple Music commercial maybe with Taraji and Kerry Washington and Mary J. Blige. It's just them dancing around to this music. And I was just looking at the commercial. I was like, where's this show? Where's this movie? I just want a whole movie about these three Black women just being themselves together and enjoying themselves.
Being friends.
Just
right?
being friends, yeah.
You because you make me laugh.
Little known fact, Ava DuVernay directed that commercial, just so you know.
Makes sense.
FYI.
Yeah, I remember
of course.
That now. It came
Grand
on
Priestess of Black Sisterhood.
After the Golden Globes last year or the Oscars.
It was one of those. It was one of those shows. One of those shows.
Yeah, the Golden Globes maybe, or the Emmys.
And also, we would be completely remiss if we don't talk about Issa Rae and Insecure and those friendships, right? Because I think those are also very lovely and nuanced examples of Black friendship. That's how Roni and I talk to each other. We call each other bitch and like laugh about it. It's not, we're not always praying for each other. Sometimes we're ready to blow somebody,
I keep watching that show because I think I just like seeing Black people on TV, maybe because that show gets on my nerves so bad. Like everybody on that show makes the worst possible decision every single time, and I'm just
which is low key. Like, don't everybody we know be making all these bad decisions though? I feel like I always be like,
medium key. What my friends are like, so.
What's also interesting about that show is so Issa is, I think, Senegalese, right? So she's a child of African immigrants. So her Black American experience is very probably different than ours, right? So some of the things that you see, like when she was so upset that the guy, came in her face, like
in our eye. I've been mad about it too. In the eye,
but you were giving him a blowjob. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the hazards of such. But
no, because I feel like those two things don't necessarily have to go together.
No, but my girlfriend and I were laughing because it was like, I mean, you can be annoyed, but like it was an overreaction, and the thought was because the writers, to them, like maybe they've never actually given a blowjob. Do you know what I mean?
See, I didn't even see that as an overreaction, though. And maybe that's just differences in the way that people feel about sex and sex acts and what they mean. Because to me, that's like an act of
aggression,
dominance and power and control and possession. That's what it feels like to me. But other people, I know people who love that. And great for them. I don't want that on me. That's just how I feel about it. But I feel like that's a different class.
That's gonna be week 5. We can cover that. Week 5.
But again, I think there's even nuances in that. And I also think that her background comes from like not traditional, Black American.
Mm-hmm. But even just like the fact that she was able to leave that situation and then go and talk to somebody and have someone like validate her feelings after that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with no question either, just like, how dare he, kind of thing. Yeah, definitely.
Because even if I feel like what you did was an overreaction, I'm still going to be like, he trash.
Yeah.
I know. I be saying that all the time when my girlfriends break up with somebody. I'm like, I hate them. And they're like, well, I can't do that. I'm like, that's good. I hate them for you. See, so I'll hate them. You do what you got to do and just know there's hate going their way currently.
Yes, I hate all of your exes for you. Yeah.
I hate them all. I have no problem doing that. I will easily take that hit. So the middle two, the one we just finished talking about was coming together the harshness, but the second one, that the third thing that we talked about or we thought was consistent was overcoming distance and loss. We often see Black sisterhood depicted in kind of separation, and then we get to see some sort of coming together. Girls Trip is a good example of that. These are some friends that have been friends for a long time, but they don't get to see each other very much anymore, and now they're coming back together. Obviously, the big, elephant in the room with this topic is the color purple, the ultimate Celie and Netti, separate, ripped apart from one another physically, and then, the triumphant ending. Roni's not here, but I'm going to read a quote that she has. Alice Walker wrote in The Guardian, art comes like everything else out of nothing, out of silence, out of, I suppose, longing. The color purple reminds Black women that longing is a material that we only have to choose to sculpt. It imparts the hope that at whatever place we find ourselves in our lives, we can be the women inside of us, that we can be more than we are right now. It's a spirit affirming message, one that's continually relevant for its truth. So that's Alice talking about her own work, but I always think about the color purple and this notion of, that sisterhood endures distance, it endures silence, it can endure so many things. And so we do see that play out often in these depictions in pop culture and media and all of those kinds of things.
I think if you even look at like The Eyes Are Watching God, the narrator, Janie comes back to her girlfriend, right? Who was rooting for her all along when everybody else was like, Janie's, Ronnie's back. We're talking about one of your favorites, The Eyes Are Watching God, right? When Janie comes back and her girlfriend's like, this is my friend, I want to hear you. I've been cheering for you all along, even when I had no idea what was happening, but you can now rest and relax on my porch because I've been your friend throughout. I think that's one of my favorite just examples of sisterhood in literature and art.
Mm-hmm. Before we keep going with that, Ronnie, you were like, I took a screenshot because I'll have to show it to you later, but you were you were preaching a word. I mean, the last thing I remember hearing was she gonna get a hug with a chair. So maybe you could pick it up from there and let us know what else you had to share with the class.
First of all, I knew someone right because I was looking at my screen and y'all was too still. And I was talking. And the preacher in me was like, the crowd ain't moving. Just like, Rhonda was just, I was like, that don't even look like they breathing. I can't be that good.
You took our breath away, Ronnie. You've done it before.
I say the people is shook. I must be preaching a mighty word today. There's going to be a lot of people come to Black Jesus today.
Oh, my word.
So, yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know what was happening. My computer just was not happy with me. And it is now happy again. So, where y'all at? What y'all talking about? I'm sorry, we on loss.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we're talking about overcoming distance and loss. We were talking about the color purple. Sherry was talking about Their Eyes Are Watching God. So we're just kind of delving into this notion of how Black sisterhood can transcend distance, can transcend time, can still exist without the quote unquote normal interactions and bonds that you would normally associate with that kind of a close relationship. My cousin Malika's birthday was today, and I had put a picture up. We grew up together. She's like, that cousin, that's your sister. And I had, just posted a picture of us from when we were little. And I was like, I just wanted to let you know how much I love you, how much I respect you, how glad I am that we are not just cousins, but sisters. And she wrote something to the effect of like, it's just always nice to know, no matter how long it's been since we talked or since we saw each other, that I can always pick up the phone and you'll have my back. And I was like, you're right, I will. But that's not, look, I'll just say this. The white girls I know, they ain't got family like that. They ain't got friends like that will just, no matter what, will be there for you. So that's what we were kind of getting into a little bit.
I like that. I've seen that so much too in just my real life. I mean, I tell my children this all the time, the friends you have in high school versus the friends you have in college, and then the friends you meet in adulthood, like they're all different friends, whatever. And a lot of times your high school friends, they just kind of fall off. But I have one particular friend from high school that she was my best friend in high school. And, I haven't seen her. We haven't like gone out in years and all that. But if I post something on Facebook and she thinks something to pop off, or she will text me and be like, where do I need to be? Like, who did it? Where we going? Like, what's happening? And so yeah, I'm gonna pick you up and then we'll figure it out from there. And so I think about that and our lives are so different, right? Like, just so she's here in the city, but our lives are millions of miles apart. But there is still this idea of like, I'm gonna come get you, what you need, what went down, what do we need to do? And of course, y'all use great examples from literature. And of course, Their Eyes Are Watching God being my favorite, of her sitting on the porch and just being like, girl, I missed you. I missed Janie on that porch. Like,
girl, TK was trash.
Listen, girl, he wasn't no good, girl. He wasn't no good, girl. He tried to bite you? Oh, girl.
He can't read me.
Oh, girl, now. You ain't got to explain that to me, honey.
Oh, my God.
Which I always think about how you see that particular like interaction, that whole like sitting on the porch thing. It's always like in 227 where they had the older woman, I can't remember her name, who was like sitting in her window all the time, always knew what was going. We see that continually picked up too. This person that's like low key, always got their eye on everybody, always looking out for whatever is going on.
That's my mama, just so y'all know.
Yeah.
That's my Aunt Mary.
That's Miss Cody.
She know all the family gossip.
Yeah. My mama know everything happening in the neighborhood. She be putting stuff, talking about, I saw you and your friends, y'all did a little fundraiser for the movie thing. That's so nice. I'm like, Mama, you don't even comment. I know, but I've been seeing it.
She only comment and tell us you still got your Christmas tree up.
She will say that though.
She's so petty. It's still up too. How
you doing, Miss Dean? Nice to see you. Nice to see you out here.
Hey, Mama Bear.
She is a mess.
Every time, we have that kind of relationship in our circles too, where someone could say one thing and we'll be like, okay, who we need to fight. We have that too, and every time that happens, I always think about Rihanna's G4L. Gangster for Life that was on the Rated R album. And I feel like that song wasn't like super popular or whatever, but it's like one of my favorite songs she ever did. And I think it's because it's about, number one, it's about misandry. Number two, it's about her saying, look, girl, I got you. Whatever he did, we're going to ride out and we're going to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that song. And it's like, I feel like this is like the Bayhive anthem.
Right. Gary will text me randomly and be like, do I need to come to Texas? Cause who wildin'? Like, I got Miles. What I mean,
I got Miles.
I got Miles.
So that's another good podcast episode title.
I got Miles.
I got Miles.
I got Miles. And Lalo got bail money.
It don't even matter. It don't even
matter. Who I gotta cut. That's really
right. Who I gotta cut.
Who I gotta cut. Yeah. Absolutely. So the final thing that we wanted to kind of talk about was actual depictions of sisters themselves, not just sister friends, but sisters. Because obviously that's something we see as Black families are portrayed on television. We see them. So The Cosby Show with Denise, Rudy, and Vanessa, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Ashley and Hillary. I thought of the Hatterbrink sisters from Amen. Did y'all watch Amen? I used to love that show.
Some.
Yeah.
I love Amen. Denver and Beloved from Beloved. And then Sherry put me in mind of Soul Food, Bird, Terry, and Maxine. I had actually forgotten about that, but that's a perfect example of how sisterhood plays itself out, at least for me and my sisters. It's always two of us quabbling about one or the other doing something. It's always somebody, out on the side there. But Sherry had some good points to make about how actual sisterhood is depicted very differently than girlfriend sisterhood when it comes to Black women. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was saying, I was trying to find examples of sisterhood in the DNA sense that didn't have, again, this like true conflict, not just literary conflict, but like true conflict. And that's sad to me, right? I can't think of any. I think we talked about half and half might be an example of sisters who seem to really like each other, but the sisters and Soul Food didn't like each other. They loved each other, but they didn't like each other. And I think Roni and her sisters like each other. Like that's her squad. That's her squad. But again, I think it's who's writing it. I think if nothing else, I want this to be an inspiration to people looking at this to tell your own stories. Like, because even Black men, women who don't have sisters, you can't allow them to be telling the stories, because then again, it's always conflict. It's always, there's one sister who thinks she's better than everybody else. There's one sister who's, down for the cause and keeps it real. And those are tropes. And in reality, we're all a little bit of all of it.
Yeah. That makes Tina and Tamara had a pretty good relationship.
That's true. That's true.
Sister.
They did.
We get to see Annalise Keating's sister in that one episode when she finally goes home, and they seem to have a pretty good relationship. Her tension is more with her stepfather?
Yeah.
Or whatever. I can't think of any more like television or movie portrayals of Black sisters.
Well, it makes me think about, what I was saying earlier about how media itself is always kind of filtered through the white gaze, right? And the lens of whiteness. And so there's this notion that because the idea of sisterhood, right, the familial DNA sense is something that white people can relate to, that they just kind of translate their experiences of sisterhood in that way to Black faces. Versus when it comes to friendships, there's a recognition that Black friendship between women is different than white friendship between women. So there's this like idea of, we don't see the nuances of how we express ourselves, even with our DNA. I have 3 sisters and, we ride hard. My sisters will always say like,
they're the same way. I got miles.
They don't play. They don't play. And I'm the baby, so they really don't play. And I feel like maybe that's something that the lens is not good enough to depict. They don't have enough depth to really express that, because they're really trying to relate it to how white people are with their sisters, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think too, like even. I think, Sherry, your point is great. It's about who's writing it. When I think of whenever I'm doing a writing workshop with young people, or whenever I'm playing around and writing a short story, there's always a character and she always has a sister and they always have a great relationship, because that's what I know to be true. Like that your blood sister, your DNA sister, your sister that y'all got, same mom and daddy, like whatever that is, your sister, like,
that's your best friend.
Good, and it's healthy, and it's your friend, and all that. Because that's what I know, and not that I don't think that I know plenty of Black women who them and their sisters are like, I don't deal with her, she don't deal with me, and we fine. But there are far too many of those stories, and not enough of Tia and Tamara's. Honestly, I mean,
what? Deliver Us from Eva. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, with Gabrielle Union.
Their sisters loved each other, right? Mm-hmm. Even if Eva was overbearing, like they still loved, like there was love and respect in that relationship. Although she needed to be a better person. Remember that?
Ashley and Hillary Banks on Bel Air weren't like, they weren't really in conflict. They just weren't very close because of the difference in age, which kind of mirrors myself and my sister, because she's 7 years older than me. We're not totally close because we didn't like grow up together in the same way, but she and I still ride for each other. She and I was still like, we're loyal, we're there for each other when we need to be, even though we don't talk every day. And Ashley and Hillary were like that. You didn't see them have a lot of storylines together, but when they did, it wasn't about them necessarily being in conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely true. And that does definitely go back to what Sherry was saying about who's telling the stories, like who's writing it. When you see somebody like Debbie Allen, who had a big part in behind the scenes of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and so those stories are going to look more authentic to us, right? Certainly the bonds that might be depicted. Well, we have come to the end of our discussion for the evening.
That's so smart.
It went by quick. Y'all. So before I do some kind of final housekeeping stuff, any last comments y'all want to make to the people about this topic about Black sisterhood and pop culture and media? A few takeaways I wanted to just point out was, Sherry mentioning like tell your own stories. That's just, for me, it really stuck out as something for us to grab onto and take with. Ooh, somebody posted in the comments, Eve's Bayou. Great example of sisterhood. Yes.
That's such a good one.
That's a good one. Thank you, Christy. Thank you. That's a great one. Mm-hmm. Oh, and Deidre mentioned that was Miss Pearl on the porch in 227 as well. So we got, let's not leave Miss Pearl out. Yes.
Miss Pearl. That's the best name ever. My sort of final word is this: find your people, find your sisterhood circle, find your people, find your sisters, because the way that you will grow and thrive with your people, with your sisters, I can't put words on it. I can't tell you the ways I've grown and become just a better version of me because of my friendship with Sherry. I can't tell you the ways I've grown and become a better version of me because of my friendship with Sharonda and Leslie and the Bayhive. And so actively looking and sort of having your ears tuned and your eyes and your heart open to finding your people, that means so much to me. Because Sherry says that all the time, find my people, these are my people, find your tribe. So in terms of sisterhood, we're hoping, I guess, at the end of all of this that we have a better idea of what it looks like, and that we can all go out and find our peoples so that we can be better versions, better sisters to each other. So that's it.
Yeah, I want to echo what Roni said. Find your tribe. I didn't find my tribe until I was 27. But I found them, and it's been amazing. So absolutely find your tribe and work to cultivate that relationship, that friendship, that intimacy. It takes work. It doesn't just happen overnight. You might connect instantly, but the work that it takes to be able to get to the level where you can be naked and transparent and reliable with each other, that takes work. Real.
I was just going to say that. Ronnie, stop saying all my stuff. Listen.
If you want to be naked for real, that's fine, but figurative nakedness is also fine. Or nudity, whatever.
Yes.
And also, I just want to... Yes, I mean, sending news to your friends is a great way to just, feed your ego. I'm just going to put it out there. It's a great way to feed your ego and get the validation and attention that you might normally seek out in more unhealthy, uncouth ways. So I've been a lot less uncouth since the Bayhive came together. Also, I want to know what people's favorite depictions of sisterhood and relationships between Black women are in pop culture, television, media, music, all of it. I want to know that. And I also want to know, what do people want to see more of? What types of stories would you like to see in depicting Black women in these relationships? That's it.
Yes. Thanks, Sharonda. Sherry, you get the last word here.
Well, here. Okay, so I was talking about everybody, telling your own stories. So I'm going to show you. Can y'all see my books?
Yes.
These are the kind of books that will help you tell your own stories. So, Story by Robert McKee, The War of Art, read screenplays, right? You can buy them, use bookstores like $2.50. You can order them on Amazon. Like, you don't have to go to film school. You can make your own film school, right?
Yes, say that.
Yep. Get your iPhone, get your Google phone, make your own stories. That's how Issa Rae did it, right? She just tapped into her friends and family, and the lights that she could find. So,
Excellent. Thank you. First of all, thank y'all so much for joining us for tonight. It was so amazing. I'm so excited to continue these discussions about Black Sisterhood in the coming weeks. We're going to be back next Wednesday night at 9:30 again. I will say that we won't be on Facebook Live. If you are registered for the course, you'll get a link to an actual GoToWebinar access point, because we want to have a little bit more interaction with everyone for the next couple of classes. But we thought this would be a fun one to do in more like panel fashion like we did tonight, since it was the lighter of the 4 weeks that we have coming up, talking about pop culture. We're going to get into some heavier things in the coming weeks, but I'm really excited to do that as well, including getting into some, the last week we'll talk a lot about what Sharonda was mentioning, which is how do you really maintain and sustain Black Sisterhood in 2018, the year of our Lord Beyonce 2018. How do we do that? So tomorrow, y'all will get a syllabus for week 2. We hope that it won't be any more difficult than this first week was, which I don't think was too much. I actually went and did it too. I actually, even though I had read most of these already, I went back and read again. So it wasn't too bad. And we'll also have the ability for y'all to ask questions and have a little bit more robust back and forth discussion in the GoTo webinar interaction. But you do have to be registered to get the access. So if your friends want to join us next week, make sure that they're registered for the class. And is that everything? Oh, Roni, you want to talk about the last part, the next phase of the AWIT challenge, a Wrinkle in Time challenge that we have been working on, which is that registration is open.
Registration for
Leslie's everybody's Black auntie.
We're going to be talking about Black Auntie-hood next week, defining family through sisterhood. So we'll be back next week to talk about that.
That's going to be
Have a good night, y'all.
Okay, bye.
Bye, y'all.